I was given 30 days for basically being absent, not showing up on time and stuff like that, while being out on bond type of situation. So, you know, I be kind of trying to figure it out, because in the beginning it was more like being a big fish in a small pond.
Protesters say they are standing against what they call, quote, political and police corruption. We spoke to one who said she hopes that the group continues to grow.
The group gets bigger, obviously, and I hope they start weeding out these corrupt police, judges, DAs, all of it.
From the outside, it might look like just another artist slipping back into trouble. But with Young Buck, what we're really watching in April 2025 is the slow, painful collapse of a legacy that once felt untouchable. This isn't some random stumble or basic court headline. This is a man who went from standing shoulder to shoulder with giants to fighting for air while the whole world watches his downfall play out in real time. Every move he makes now feels heavier, like the walls are closing in on a career that should have never ended like this. His latest arrest in Sumner County was a surprise to the people who have been paying attention. It was the moment years of bad choices, legal chaos, money problems, and old beefs finally snapped together like pieces of a puzzle nobody wanted to see completed. When officials confirmed he violated bond supervision,
After we had met 50 and he had, made the record with him up here or whatnot, we left New York and went across the country to California. And going across the country to California, we was going on Suge Knight's time, which I didn't have full recognition or full knowledge of what was going on, because Juvenile was the one who was spearheading the bit.
And Buck, I think that's over. I think that's done, but...
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished.
6 different times connected to that 2020 domestic allegations, vandalism, and a weapon charge, the judge didn't sugarcoat a thing. The ruling was sharp and cold. 30 days in jail right now, then a fresh bond and a full trial waiting for him afterward. And that hit hard, because this is a man who once stood with 50 Cent, Eminem, and Dr. Dre on some of the biggest stages in music. And now, people are wondering if he'll spend real time in a Tennessee cell. There was a hearing earlier this week to revoke bond for David Darnell Brown, and the conditions he broke weren't complicated at all. After getting out in 2020 on a $60,000 bond, Buck was supposed to check in with his bond supervisor twice a month, while under GPS monitoring for both a domestic case and a separate substance-related case. But prosecutors say he just stopped showing up, like the rules didn't apply anymore. By April 7, 2025, the district attorney's office had enough and demanded action, and that same day he was booked into the county jail to start his 30-day sentence.
My strong point with the crew, you know what I'm saying? I've always loved the music more than the money. I mean, it might sound crazy to some of y'all, but that's the truth, because I wasn't making no money from music in the beginning. I fell in love with just the music, and that's what I maintained my love for. I mean, the money.
The timing couldn't be worse, because his supporters were hoping that old 2020 situation would finally get wrapped up. Instead, his trial date got moved from July 24th all the way to January 12th, 2026, trapping him in a legal freeze that could end with a punishment measured in decades, not months. And when you look at that timeline next to his history, the pattern jumps out like a warning sign glowing in the dark. Outside the courthouse in Sumner County, the whole scene felt like 2 different worlds staring each other down, depending on which side of the barricade you stood on.
He doing with his life, 50 doing whatever he doing with his life, and it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? But I went down that road of trying to get us back together and getting back together and all of that, and.
Local news cameras caught supporters gathering on the steps with homemade signs, telling every reporter who would listen that Young Buck was the real victim in that 2020 situation. They kept reminding people that his former partner was also charged with reckless endangerment after allegedly firing a weapon in his direction, and that detail made the crowd even louder. One organizer even stepped right up to the mic and said Buck was a provider trying to break away from a toxic situation, claiming the system was punishing him instead of protecting him. But once you stepped inside the courthouse walls, all that passion from the crowd turned into cold paperwork and strict rules. Officials didn't talk about emotion or loyalty. They talked about missed check-ins, GPS violations, and a long history of probation issues that went all the way back to the old Vibe Awards case, plus past threats tied to another former partner.
So it's like now I'm in a place where it's like, you know, ain't no sense of talking about it. Let me just show you, you know what I mean? So, you know, you can just expect a lot of new music, a lot of new movement. This is the first time I even sit in front of a camera doing an interview in a long time, man, you know what I'm saying?
And as that trial date creeps closer on the calendar, the whole tone around this case starts to shift from
Every violation was laid out piece by piece, like a blueprint of trouble they said he created for himself. That clashed fans calling him a father figure and role model, while the state called him a repeat violator, is the same split that's been shadowing him since the late 2000s. The internet didn't waste a second turning his latest mugshot into a circus. Within hours, 50 Cent, who turned trolling into an entire side career, reposted Buck's booking photo to millions of followers and added a caption clowning the shape of Buck's head, joking that officers must have hit him before the picture was taken. And this wasn't some random comment for laughs. It lined up with earlier posts where he used that same image next to cartoon clips of characters with exaggerated features, all designed to make Buck look like a walking punchline.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, once as an artist, once you give it to the people and give it to the streets, you know, they gonna make it, they gonna let you know what you're dealing with. So I'm definitely about to shoot the first video off of that project, Do Better. And you know, like I say, if you ain't heard it, make sure you get out there and go stream me, buy me, download me. Yeah, man, it's like I said, I got a lot of music out. I think a lot of the things that I've been through and going through in life has played a part in regards to people actually really paying close attention and realizing I've been him.
For anyone who remembers when Buck's name sat next to platinum plaques, sold-out arenas, and global tours, seeing that same face thrown into cheap meme culture shows exactly how far the power has shifted. And while the legal danger was heavy by itself, it wasn't even the full picture. By the time he walked back into a Tennessee cell in April 2025, the financial foundation beneath Young Buck's entire career had already been wrecked so badly that most artists only hear about stories like this and cautionary speeches about what not to do. In 2023, after a long and messy bankruptcy battle that played out like a public unraveling, court filings revealed just how deep Young Buck's financial collapse had become. The judge ordered a full liquidation of every asset he had, roughly $1.05 million worth. From pieces of his music catalog to studio equipment, cars, and jewelry, all piled together just to be turned into cash. Nearly half of that didn't even make it to the people he owed.
Like, you know, we're gonna jump straight into it. I'll get this paperwork pulled up. You can run it through your lawyers or whatever you need to do. I'll let you know what I'm looking to do, and if you see fit for it, let's go forward with it. And honestly, man, that was it right there. That's what it took. I went, got me a lawyer, of course.
Around $445,000 was swallowed instantly by legal fees alone. That left roughly $600,000 to split between a line of creditors waiting for their slice, unpaid taxes, old business beefs, and one very personal claim from a former boss who seems to enjoy twisting the blade every chance he gets. The court sided with 50 on what he said was a $250,000 payment that went wrong. 50 called it a personal loan that Buck never paid back. Buck's team pushed the opposite story, saying it was an advance tied to a recording deal, even hinting at one point that there was no proof the money ever hit his hands.
But, you know, man, 50 really paying attention to you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And next thing I know, the next call was, yo, man, M loved the record. He want to mix the record, bro. And I'm like, M? You talking about Eminem? You feel? So it started from there. They flew me out.
So you never...
But the judge didn't buy that narrative. The ruling forced Buck to take responsibility for just over $200,000, and that single debt became one of the main reasons his catalog and personal possessions ended up on the auction block. It's almost impossible to treat that outcome as simple financial trouble when the winning creditor is the same man who's been clowning his mugshots, mocking his choices, and hinting at behind-the-scenes control for more than a decade. This is the moment where all those Whispers fans used to brush off the ones about Sabotage. Pressure and quiet power plays start sounding a lot less like wild theories and a lot more like fair questions that people have been scared to say out loud. Industry insiders looking closely at the timeline say the bankruptcy didn't just wipe out Young Buck Stets. It quietly pulled him out of an old contract that had been gripping his career for years.
Today, protesters spoke out against straight-out-of-Cashville rapper Young Buck being ordered to serve time. David Darnell Brown, known as Young Buck, was sentenced to serve time for repeated violations of his bond supervision. Officials say Brown was ordered to serve 30 days in Sumner County Jail after his bond.
That same contract, the one he blamed publicly back in 2009 and 2010 for trapping him on the mixtape grind, finally lost its power once the liquidation was complete. To people who understand how the music business really works, that timing wasn't just interesting, it raised eyebrows. The fact that G-Unit Records once hit him with a $10 million lawsuit, and the fact that even after bankruptcy he still owed 50 money well into the 2020s, has pushed some insiders to ask the kind of questions nobody wants to say out loud. Was this financial collapse just the result of years of mistakes? Or was it the slow play strategy of a rival who always stayed 2 moves ahead? People in the industry don't throw those questions around lightly, especially when they know how long certain grudges can last in this business. No one on 50's team has ever admitted to any kind of hidden campaign beyond collecting what the court ruled he was owed. But when you have one person who can clown you online, pull up old photos, and enforce contracts in the same breath,
now, after repeated violations of his bond supervision, Tennessee native and straight-out-of-Cashville rapper Young Buck now has to serve time.
So Sumner County officials say there was a hearing earlier this week to revoke bond for David Darnell Brown.
It is easy for viewers to feel like there might be more strategy behind the scenes than anyone is willing to admit. To fans watching the pattern from a distance, it doesn't look random, it looks calculated. At the same time, we can't act like all this came out of thin air. When you rewind to 2014, there was a moment where it looked like Young Buck had pulled off one of the rarest comebacks in hip-hop, returning under the same banner that once pushed him out. When the G-Unit reunion hit the Hot 97 Summer Jam stage on June 1, 2014, the whole energy shifted. He was right back up there next to 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, and Tony Yayo, and the crowd reacted like a missing piece had snapped back into place. In the months that followed, they dropped The Beauty of Independence and The Beast is G-Unit, and Buck's voice and energy powered huge parts of both projects. Fans heard the same raw delivery from his straight-out-of-Cashville era, but now it was filtered through prison time, IRS raids, and a strict federal weapon sentence. For a moment, the story felt like redemption instead of another fall. He even launched an ambitious run of mixtapes built around the number 10, showing he still believed in long-term strategy even when life had thrown everything at him. But even in that reunion wave, the bond with 50 never fully left the danger zone. Old accusations kept floating around: missed tax responsibilities, alleged substance issues, and quiet loyalty conflicts involving Shaw Money XL. Those shadows followed him into every interview, every freestyle, every Instagram post. And by 2018, when Buck was pushing new music and hinting at an album supposedly connected to both 50 and Dr. Dre, the cracks started opening again.
And out of my ordeal back in the streets, I ended up getting shot in a home invasion and a robbery. One in the arm and one in the upper thigh area. It was enough for me to wake up and really realize that, yo, if this shit keep going on like this, I'm either to get killed or I'm gonna go to jail. And I really realized that because I was getting down for real. Really started to devote more of my time to the music then, the studio.
Legal filings popped back up around unpaid obligations, and 50 once more claimed that any move Buck tried to make had to go through him first. So while fans were cheering a comeback, the paperwork was telling a totally different story. And for an artist trying to rebuild after an 18-month federal sentence, an earlier community service tied to the Vibe Awards case, the idea that a former mentor could still block his path in the late 2010s and early 2020s made the whole sabotage theory feel way less like gossip and way more like something people could believe. Then came the personal hits, the kind that cut way deeper than lawsuits or unpaid debts. In 2019, when leaked audio involving Buck and a trans individual started circulating online, the situation should have stayed private, something handled behind the scenes with respect. Instead, 50 took the moment and turned it into open season.
he was kind of shocked to see me there. I'm like, I've been here for a whole week. And he was like, man, you want to get up out of here for a minute? You know what I'm saying? And I took that ride with Juvie, and that's where my career started, with Juvenile.
A week.
He dropped posts with harsh captions, using the moment to paint Buck as someone who betrayed him and broke some imaginary code. Even though the situation had nothing to do with loyalty or business, the tension exploded again in early 2025 when Buck appeared in a clip showing respect to Big Meech after his release, telling critics to stop speaking carelessly about the former Kingpin's name. Instead of letting it go, 50 jumped online again, mocking Buck's orientation and pushing the same narrative he'd been fueling for years. He wrote that Buck fell out with me because he liked boys, and added that he never told him to go be with that type of person. He didn't use slurs in the quote I'm giving you now. I removed the banned language, but the intention behind the insults stayed the same. He weaponized old rumors at the exact moment the legal system was tightening its grip. To people paying attention, this didn't look like a personality clash anymore. It looked like a long-term strategy to keep Buck branded by scandal instead of music. Every time Buck tried to stand up, another online jab knocked him back down. That last insult in 2025 didn't just trend for a moment, it landed directly on top of Buck's ongoing legal mess, financial collapse, and public stress. While supporters were outside the courthouse arguing, he was being targeted unfairly, especially since his former partner in the FC20 case had also faced charges. 50's comments online pushed his image even further off a cliff. Brand partners, promoters, and collaborators saw those posts, and instead of seeing an artist rebuilding, they saw someone the industry viewed as a liability. Meanwhile, Buck tried to present himself differently on socialmedia.com, focused, grateful. He celebrated milestones like the 18th anniversary of Straight Outta Cashville and hinted at new work behind the scenes, trying to remind the world that he once made history with the combination of an upcoming 2026 trial, leftover debts from a bankruptcy he barely escaped, and the constant pressure from a more powerful rival turned his entire path into a battlefield. And as that January court date gets closer, the whole situation shifts from crisis to something that feels calculated. Prosecutors in Sumner County didn't push the trial to January 12, 2026, because people were busy. Insiders say delays like that usually mean the state is building something heavy behind the scenes, stacking witnesses, paperwork, and every prior incident they can find. They now have bond logs showing missed meetings in 2024 and early 2025. They have GPS records showing where he was at times he should have been reporting. And they have a paper trail that connects today's violations to a man with a 2012 conviction for possessing a weapon as a convicted felon. From the prosecution's angle, every missed appointment is another brick in a wall they're constructing around the phrase, repeat offender. This isn't about one messy night in 2020. They're preparing to frame it as a pattern stretching all the way back to the Vibe Awards case in 2004. Then the 18-month federal sentence in 2012, and everything in between. They can point to the 2016 arrest over threats involving an ex, the 2022 vandalism case, where officers said he kicked in a vehicle, and now the bond violations tied to both a domestic case and a substance-related case. To them, it's proof that warnings and previous sentences never changed anything. One former county attorney described this strategy as the snowball method. The state lets small problems pile up until they can stand in front of a jury and say, this isn't a one-time lapse, it's a lifestyle. And by the time January 2026 arrives, prosecutors are likely to have every old misstep polished and ready to roll out in front of 12 strangers. And to make things worse, that snowball is rolling through a world that already sees Buck as unstable. When officials in 2025 described his bond breaches as repeated and serious, it added even more weight to a file already overflowing with past trouble. Prosecutors emphasized that a judge had to yank his freedom just to get him back under control, sending a loud message that they see him as someone who refuses to respect court orders. A juror who hears that and then learns about a past federal sentence involving a weapon is not going to separate one decade from another. Add the fact that his 2020 arrest involved accusations inside his own home with a firearm connected to the story, and it becomes incredibly easy for a prosecutor to stand up and say, this person has been given chance after chance and still chose the same chaos. Whether or not that's the whole truth, that's clearly the narrative they're gearing up to sell. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, Another story has been built brick by brick for almost 20 years, and it has 50 Cent's fingerprints all over it. When we rewind to that reunion moment in 2014, the entire energy was different. Junit back on stage, 2 new EP projects, Buck yelling on the phone about being blessed and relevant again, smiling in interviews, pouring drinks in videos as if all the fights, raids, and federal heat were finally behind him. But fast forward to April 2025, and that same man's mugshot is being cropped, reposted, and blasted 2 millions, with 50 cracking jokes about his hairline and hinting officers roughed him up. And that wasn't the first time. Not even close. Every major low point since 2019 seems to come with a new caption, a fresh meme, another sarcastic jab about money owed. These online hits might look like casual trolling at first, but when you line them up next to the Courtroom timeline, they start to feel like part of a much colder strategy. Because remember, this is the same 50 Cent who walked out of a brutal bankruptcy showdown in 2023 with a legal victory worth just over $200,000, stamped by a judge who sided with his version of the disputed payment. And this is the same man who went on interviews saying he had bailed Buck out of tax trouble before, calling him financially reckless, then watched months later as liquidation forced more than $1 million in assets onto the auction block, including the very catalog that helped make G-Unit a powerhouse. When financial leverage meets public humiliation, you have to ask if this is pettiness or chess. Industry veterans who've seen similar fallouts call this psychological warfare in public. View and one former road manager from another camp told colleagues that every time Buck's name trends for legal trouble, 50's posts function like a free blast of negative PR that spreads far past Tennessee. And that matters, because jurors, venue owners, even local officials scroll the same platforms as everyone else. They see the memes and mockery long before they see a single court document. So when 50 brought back old rumors about Buck's personal life in early 2025, right as protesters were standing outside the way, courthouse and reporters were talking about the upcoming trial. It's not wild at all to think those words could be doing more than scoring internet laughs. And the deeper history behind the mockery makes it even colder. This is the same relationship that cracked open in 2008 with a taped phone call where Buck was heard crying, apologizing, asking for guidance. Then things got dragged further when 50 accused him of substance issues on the radio, claimed he paid taxes for him more than once, then reignited everything in 2019 when private audio leaked online. 50 didn't keep his distance. He turned it into a weapon. He hit the internet with lines claiming Buck fell out with me because he liked boys, and when Buck sent love too. Big Meech in 2025, telling people to stop playing with his name. 50 went right back to the same wound, repeating insinuations and turning his former artist's personal life into another punchline. Even with safe wording, the intention behind those shots was designed to sting. And sitting above all this noise is one heavy possibility that no one in Buck's circle can ignore. If the jury in 2026 decides the pattern prosecutors are building is real, we might be looking at a sentence that removes him from the board for a long stretch at an age where comebacks are rare and second chances aren't easy to grab. A former label executive already told colleagues that, for some in the industry, this case feels like the final chapter. They've moved on to new talent, fresh waves, and new alliances with the same man who once said Buck's career was finished. So when we see that the only person who consistently benefits from each new low point is the same figure collecting court-ordered checks and cracking jokes online, we're forced to ask the question no one wants to say out loud. Is young Buck walking into a fair fight in 2026? Or stepping into a stage-managed finale where the verdict was written in memes years ago? Let us know what you think in the comments, because this story is far from over, and until the gavel finally hits, we'll be right here watching how it all plays out. Stay safe, stay alert, and we'll catch you in the next one.